Campbell.
Sid, miss you.
Oh, yay. You guys remember Campbell and I are friends from Loch Kelly retreat. We were buddies this year. And Campbell does this really cool stuff of non-duality in movement. And I guess how is it this that we're exploring? Is it separate from our bodies? How do we make sense of the relationship between this causeless okayness, this peace, this love, this beingness, and the somatic experience, the sensations, the body, the movement? How do we make sense of that? And I'm wondering, just to like dive in with fun, Campbell, do you have any like little, because some of for Jessica it's very early. It's very early for you too. It's very early. And you have like some kind of little movement thing that might be a nice way to bring us into this together.
Yeah, let's see. So, what immediately comes to mind is kind of exploring our space, meaning we might have an inwardness or an outwardness with the body. So, I notice, for instance, Jessica, or I think I see some shaping inwards. We might try that together to try on a close inward shape with the body, with the arms or maybe the legs, and seeing how that feels. Notice what comes alive when we take a small shape. I'm trying that now. You can't see me so well here. Let's see. And then notice what comes alive if you try on a medium shape. So maybe a little bit, it might be just like a little moving or a little stretching or something that's kind of in this mid space. And curiously notice what it's like to take a big shape. So maybe it's like tendrils reaching out toward the sun, growing outward, expanding. And at any given moment, some parts of us might prefer small. Our body mind might love the expansiveness. We can just explore possibilities, trying them on. All right. Thank you all.
Mhm. Wow. So what do we find if we are, in IFS, we call it self-leadership. In the East, they call it self-realization. Sometimes we call it self-abidance. What is most conducive for you in knowing this peace, this love, this fulfillment in where Campbell kind of playfully took us, the sense of the smallness in the somatic to this. The somatic just opens up into this infinite to contained. Really, like some of us, we meditate, right? In meditation, they have get you assume the posture and no movement. And does that is that more conducive for your system in knowing the stillness, the peace, the silence? Or is it the opposite? That it's when we recognize, wow, they're not boundaries. There's this spaciousness that I'm inseparable from. And then what about like movement? Because some of us, again, hey, when we're in this group, when we're focused on the inside, it's easy for me to be this peace. But then what about when sounds start happening, when people turn on the TV, when there's busyness and noise? And this is This is a question about silence. Often people might describe this beingness as silence. What happens to the silence when there's noise for you? Or the stillness? We're meditating, or we're just being inside to us in a small place, and we can feel the stillness that's here. What happens when there's movement? Is stillness still here when movement occurs? All right, that's a lot as we just say hello on this early morning. Let's go around and see what's here for everybody. What's happening? What's happening? And I know Inga's been writing me about like looking forward to joining, and I've missed my friend. And how about Inga? What's here for you with where Campbell took us, or just you today? What's here?
um, yeah, I really missed this. I realized, it's so nice to be here again, to see you. Thank you, Sid, and thank you, everybody. I said to Sid, I have these cards, and oh, Jessica's here, and Sarah is here, and I don't know Campbell yet, but they're like, oh, I know these, my friends are here, Sid is here, so yeah, I really like that. I have parts that have tried to make sense of all of this, right? And so there is this spacious something, I don't know, call it, maybe some people call it awareness. I'm not even sure if that's the right name, And so my parts try to find out, like, how does this relate to peace and safety and sense of connection? And I'm not sure, but it's almost like the body senses this, that as that's how it feels in my body, the sense of peace, of stability, of warmth, of love. And today I realized my parts are, you talk about the updating, and I really like this term, that my parts are learning. So I shared in this group several times before. I mean, when I first came, my parts are so longing for love, and they're realizing that, oh, it's always here, but it's different than they thought it would be. Um, yeah, I guess that's how the being just feels today. Like feel this joy and the love that my parts are so longing for. It shows up more as a soft and tender and warm, almost like a smile. It's not this big exciting thing.
I have some questions for everybody with what you're sharing, Inga. I could indulge for just a moment, just as Inga takes us in. She says she starts off with describing the joy in seeing kind of Jessica and Sarah here. Oh, there's this, my friends, this familiarity, this. What about that? What about that connectedness, which I can you guys see so clearly in my face when I see you. It's like, oh my God, Jessica's here, Campbell's here. Whoa, Sarah and Inga, this is amazing. It's like, what does that give our system? That familiarity, that is there. Like, what do you find there? What do parts find in that? Is there a comfort? Is there a sense of being welcomed? Oh, wow, it's not just my system that's welcoming what's arising in me. Now I've got Jessica Campbell, Sarah, and Sid that are welcoming what's arising in me too. And so, do some of us find like the sense of relief, the sense of maybe safety, connectedness that I'm guessing be what Inga's finding, or different flavors of this? And then some of us go the opposite direction, right? As we feel exposed, it's like, whoa, this is not so safe. I'd much rather like be by myself. It's more safe there. So that's the first thing that arises. What is this? What is this group, this field? What does it provide for your system? And then Inga says, that's what it feels like in my body, to quote her, when she talks about the safety, the love, the stability. That's what it feels like in my body. And so my question for you is, how do you know these qualities that whatever it is that you long for, that your system longs for, that your parts long for, if it's safety, if it's peace, if it's stability, if it's love, how do you know that it's here? How do you know that it's here? And is it mostly from a somatic feel? I can feel the peace. I feel the safety. And is it exclusively that? Is that required to know that, wow, safety is here? It's felt. Or is there also, if that's not accessible, is there a knowing? Does it need to be felt at all in the body? Can it be through knowing that love is here, safety is here, stability is here, connectedness is here? Really, for each of us, if I ask you, how do you know everything's okay? Isn't this is so much of the game, right? As Inga's describing what her parts are longing for, which is just another way to say what what each of us are longing for. And I guess that's my final question for all of us. It's like, what is it that you're longing for? What is being longed for? Are they the words that Inga spoke? Love, safety, stability, connection. Or is it different? Some of us, we just say, there's a longing for home. And if it's home, what does that mean for your system? And then our game is we're finding it. We're getting flavors of it, as Inga's describing this that's here. As she describes it as, it's like a soft tenderness, almost like a smile. It's not this big joy. It's a soft tenderness. It's almost like a smile that's here. And for some of us, we're finding some of this is kind of always here in the background, whatever flavor. And so, what is it for your system? What is being longed for? And what's most like that, which is here? Is it like the soft smile? Is it an aliveness? Is it a presence? Inga, what you got to bring this all together for us?
Well, I mean, my parts are very clear. They are saying, well, the only thing that I really need is love, and if I have that, I'm free. They're very clear about this. You know, if I have that, I feel safe, and I'm free to be myself, and I'm free to do what feels right to me.
Perfect. So it's so simple. It's just like, oh, there are all those words, but it's really just love for my system. Love. First, I love that simplicity. And can we all relate? Do we have one word that just comes to the surface as far as what's being longed for? And then, Inga, for you to know, for your parts to know that love is here, for you to know that love is here, how is it? What's the indicator? How does it know? How can it find that rest that love is here? How does it know that?
Yeah, it's still learning. There's still moments where I'm like, I'm not so sure, you know. And it's often more looking around and recognizing and opening up, you know, willingness to well, it's almost like a child that looks in one direction, my parent is gone and is not able to, because it's in panic, to look around. And so what my parents are learning is this, instead of contracting, to recognize, oh, almost like looking around or seeing, oh, this is, it is here. And what also emerged is a way to let them know I'm here, you know, just like through bodily, through body contact, and to, I don't know why it's, but it just works, you know. If I put my hand here and I feel the warmth,
Nice.
the parts are like, oh yeah, there is connection, there is sense of safety, and they relax, and all of a sudden it's
Beautiful.
like, yeah, it's so obvious, you know, love is here.
Beautiful. So how do our systems get this? If it's so, like for Inga, it's so simple and clear, right? It's just love is what is being longed for. And then, but the game is, right? How do the parts get to know that? How do they update? How do they recognize and realize that love is here, that this okayness is here? And Inga's describing there's something somatic that can happen. Touch the chest. And it communicates. What communicates it for your system? Okay, and then lastly, as we speak about what it is that you are longing for, let's say it's love. The last question is, where do you find it? And can we all find that we can go two different directions for this that is longed for? We can go, and we can go both directions at the same time. We can go out through experience, through finding this that is longed for from others, from relationships, from substances, from experiences. And or we can turn entirely in and start to get a flavor that this is the very nature of me, of beingness, of self, and that fulfillment can be found here. And for most of us, it's a mix of the two. All right. That was a lot. How about, hey, Campbell, can we do like another little body thing, and then got something for us, a little transition, a little sherbet between courses?
A little sherbet. I am inviting everyone right now to embody water in the form that speaks to you and your part. So it could be like a waterfall, it could be bubbly, it could be like a placid lake. So you decide whether it's thunderstorms or whether it's smooth, glacier, frozen. Embody that water right now. Could be very subtle. Could see it in your mind and let that allow the body to experience it. We are naturally shapeshifters, one moment to the next. Maybe for you, it goes from rain into vapor. Notice if the whole body participates. Maybe it's more the spine. Maybe it's vastly beyond the body. And as Sid lovingly invited, check in. Does the experience of allowing yourself to embody water bring you closer to what your parts are longing for? Is there a connection made? And when your sherbet feels complete, you can still be a body of water, because we are, and come back and join the other water bodies.
Well, what's that like? What's that like? For each of us, how are you? How are you right now? Parts are here in the foreground. Like a, that was so cool. Changing form of water. Water is this flow, this ease. Part that was like cool. Maybe there's a part that was understanding, makes a sense of, wow, is this, to Campbell's question, is this helpful? This water in having my system know self. Maybe there's another part, like, I don't like this so much. This is kind of painful. To take this deeply into my body. I don't know if I like that so much. I think I like the images better. There's something uncomfortable in focusing on the body so intimately. Whatever's arising, can it all be welcomed? Maybe, come on, I have things I want to say. I've got something bubbling here. Come on, let's get on with it. And then we have our parts, whatever our parts are that are here with how are you? We just notice the foreground. Our friend Sarah's got about 75 parts. I wonder how many of those are speaking right now with the party that's happening. So we got the foreground with the parts, and then we have what they're arising in. And maybe it's still a sense of the water. Maybe it's a sense of water. Maybe it's a sense of Inga's love. What is it arising in? Or is it more the spaciousness that Campbell pointed us to in the first exploration? What is everything arising in? And then in a moment, we'll go to see what's happening in our friend Jessica. Before we do that, is there anything bubbling that's wanting to be shared? Anything bubbling?
I just say thank you, Campbell. That was really beautiful. I also want to just say real quick, I have a part that's like, I'm so happy to see everybody that I know, but I'm also so happy that you're here. Just need to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Inga.
Isn't that rich, the not knowing? Like somebody like, wow, Campbell's appeared and we don't know her. And what's she bringing? Like, wow, she talks about this water, and then we haven't even talked to her about what's going on inside of her and what her world is like. What gifts does she have for us? What parts does she have a part that Sarah doesn't even include in her 75 parts? Might there be a discovery of a new part today? Who knows? And what qualities of beingness are here? Does Campbell know? And Jessica, who we're about to go to, like, what is the flavor of beingness that's here in her system? Like, some of us are used to going to these, listening to these teachers on YouTube or going and being with them in person. But I want to suggest that that's what we're doing right here through the five of us. Because Jessica's about to show us, the flavor of beingness in parts, and it's like we're in, they call it satsang when some of these teachers speak from this place. And I'd like to suggest that that's what we're in together as each of us share. And then lastly, effortless IFS is a little different than a lot of the other practices because it really intends to be a celebration of everything that arises of our humanity. And the invitation is to see if all of us can join in that celebration as Jessica shares whatever part she shares. It might be a really sad part. It might be a stressful part. It might be a joyful part. Any of those parts, like, can we really fully welcome and even celebrate them? I call this sometimes like having a birthday party for parts. Can we do that? And you might be like, oh, Sid, this is silly. But I want to suggest that this might be like a really shortcut way in in being able to fall in love with everything that arises in us. As we fall in love with it in each other systems, it becomes so much easier to see the innocence of our own parts. And for some people, that is the entire game. If we can see the innocence of what arises in us, as we see the innocence, that opens up a transparency in this beingness, and we start to see the beingness, the wholeness. And before we know it, we're walking around as whoever you like listening to on YouTube. You're like, why would I listen to them? I'm living that. That's me. All right, Jessica, what's going on?
If I could join and be less of it. uh, I just really feel like the pain of my heart is bubbling over this morning. And I don't have a lot of clarity. Also, I just woke up, so
What's it like? What's it like? The pain of my parts bubbling over. Does it feel like, what's the feeling texture of it? Is it like, if it's sadness, is it overwhelm? Is it a little panic on discomfort? What's the feel of it?
yes, all of the above.
So just so we don't miss out on this, because this can be one of those things that our system stays away from, right? And we can often have our system like, hey, I just want to be in the joy, in the openness, in the love that Inga speaks of. And those other things, the critic, the controller, the discomfort, the exiles, I don't know about that. But this is such a beautiful opportunity that we have as Jessica's letting those parts be seen and being as she's feeling them. You can just tune into her feelings and to know them. You can just do it all somatically, or you can hear her parts and see them. And it's really an invitation of how intimate can we be with our friend in this? And can we really find that nothing Jessica points to is foreign to us? You really can include this. It's such a gentle way of including more of our system, right? Instead of like saying, hey, you need to go into the pain inside your system, or you need to touch that and touch that. It's scary, but it's like it's gentler being with, like, Jessica's doing the hard work for us. We just get to be with Jessica. How you doing, Jessica?
Yeah, I don't know. I have parts that feel bad that I came on and then just started crying. It's not how I wanted to participate. Uh, that when we did the water thing, I was like, I am a mud puddle. Uh, also, I have to leave at 9.
What's it like, the mud? What's it like, the mud? What's that like? Just for all of us, before Jessica goes, what's it like, the idea that this water is mud? And that what's that like? How does that change something? What changes? What's that like, Jessica?
Messy, messy and clouded, and yeah, small.
And what about that, as we hear Jessica describe this messy, cloudy, this muddiness? Where do you go when you hear her describe that? Is there like, whoa, is there curiosity? It's like interesting to know it even more. And do we have parts that come up that want to fix and help? Do we notice those parts that come up inside of us towards Jessica's system? And we welcome those, because it's the same thing that happens for ourselves. She's just helping us go inside. And then what's it like as we hear about this muddiness, this messiness, this cloudiness? We all know this, right? When there's not a great clarity of seeing and of discernment. It's this little cloudy, it's muddy, maybe it's loud. And when you touch that in Jessica's system that she's pointing to, or just these words that I'm describing, do you have parts that are like, oh, I don't like this? Do you have parts that want to get away from it, that want to change it, that want more clarity, that want more transparency of water instead of muddiness? Like, really, do you notice parts that have that preference? And then in the midst of that, can you touch an okayness with what's here? As we hear Jessica's system, can you find even a sense of awe for this muddiness, for this cloudiness, an enjoyment of it, like kids on a rainy day that they get to go play outside in the mud, right? There's the richness of that. It's like, you're going to get so dirty. Oh no, this is my favorite time of day. It's muddy. We get to go out and play. Can you find from self this just welcoming of life that includes the muddiness and the cloudiness? How you doing, Jessica? Can you touch that? What do you find?
I find that within my system, I don't need the clarity. The muddiness is okay. But then, like, if I'm here, I want the clarity for all of you. I don't want to bring my muddiness here.
How about that precious part? As we hear Jessica say, like, inside, I'm okay with it. There's an okayness with the muddiness, but in my kind of love of the people I'm with and my care, I'm wanting to be a different way. I'm wanting to contribute a different flavor. Because we hear that part in Jessica, can we all just appreciate it? I know that part. And can that part be welcomed in her? And then can we tune into that in our own system, like a tuning fork? What's the part that's like, well, there's a preference for what I share here, what I contribute. I'm wanting to offer things that are going to be uplifting. Like, can we find that voice inside of us? And how does that voice limit the spectrum of who we can be? This, as Campbell will take us someplace else soon, in this movement, limits the movement, the flow, the range that we have. How does that part do that in its innocence? Can we feel the cost of blending with parts? And can we also just welcome and celebrate the part that has that care and love? How you doing, Jessica?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah. So what's this like for all of us as Jessica's been guiding us and offered this gift to us that for her, it might be, no, this is not what I wanted to offer, but I'm going to suggest this might be the deepest territory of today in feeling all of this, especially if our system could truly welcome it in us and didn't push it away, the freedom, the openness that could come from that. Any final words, Jessica? No. All right, so this is where it becomes really creative and improv, because like, I'm going to point to Campbell again and say, Campbell, where are you going to take us with that somatically?
Yeah, what's coming up for me is an expression. How could we express love for Jessica's parts and love for our own parts that are here now? Maybe the tuning fork has arisen in you. So, how might you right now express love to hold, to welcome, to celebrate, to love in whatever fashion Jessica's parts and our own? So, that maybe that's a hand on the heart, maybe it's an offering of a virtual hug. Notice there might be a sending and a receiving element. And how do you feel as you send the love and care? And how do you feel as you receive that celebration and welcoming? Maybe there's even less separation. The sending and the receiving are all part of the same activity. And then you might just let that expression melt. It might still continue on as we continue into our next phase. But you can stay connected with the effects of expressing in that way. Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you, Campbell. Before we transition to Sarah, how's everybody doing? How are you? Again, is it a little uncomfortable, scary bringing this into the body as Campbell brings us into the body so deeply? Are there parts that are some discomfort that comes? Maybe even a firefighter, like I need a little break. This is a lot. What's here for you? What's arising in the foreground? And can all of that be welcomed? Is it okay that it's all here? And maybe there's a part that's like, well, this is a little too much, this is a little too much, I need a break. And it's just kind of got a part. Forget what Sarah calls her, like her disassociative team or something that takes her away and gives her a little break. And I love those parts. And so this is a little different today with how Campbell keeps bringing us back into the body, and it can be overwhelming for some vulnerable parts in us. And if so, whatever's needed, a little break, I need to put my head down. As you're noticing what's here, the parts that are here and what they're arising in, this background, this love, the spaciousness. You notice what's here for you. Before we go to Sarah, I'm going to do my 1-minute housekeeping, and just that I'm a mediator, not a psychotherapist, and this is friends exploring together. If everybody's good, being responsible for their journey, if I could get a thumbs up from you. Thank you. And then secondly, as always, I've got this being recorded, but only my image is shared, but your audio could be shared as I share this electronically, sometimes with people who can't come. And if you're good with that, and as always, if there's anything at all that you say during today that you're like, ooh, I don't like that, just stay on afterwards and tell me and I'll delete it. If everybody's good with that, if I could get a thumbs up, please. Great. And then we're just noticing what's here. Before we go to Sarah, also, then noticing that we're not alone, that there are the four of us with you, that it's not just does it all end at your square on the Zoom? Is that boundary real between you and us, between you and your room, between you and the tree outside your home, between you and the sky? So what is connectedness for you here? What's that? This connectedness, causeless connectedness, just here. And are you also curious with me as we shift to Sarah? What's going on in our friend today? Is it like a celebration of her parts, or is it more like there's some parts that aren't so happy? They're kind of blocking, and like this is that are obscuring. And then what are they all arising in Sarah as we look at her? What are they arising in? Is it peace? Is it a quiet joy? Is it more like Inga's little smile, the tender smile? What is it in Sarah? All right, Sarah, we give up. Tell us, what is it? What's here?
There's a lot of compassion and just love. I liked where Campbell took us. I just felt a waterfall, and it's like a pouring of love. And there was a sense of the muddiness, but like the waterfall is bigger than the muddiness. Like the love is just more than that. So it makes it feel okay. It cleanses the muddiness and just brings it to peace. So there's just love and compassion. Lots of parts came up with the sadness, the fixer parts, the firefighters, and then just love, just a sense of love, compassion.
What's it like for your part, Sarah? What's it like for as we hear this, as we see this image, Sarah's image of the muddiness, and then there's this waterfall. It kind of cleanses. It's like I'm really imagining in my mind, it's like all these parts, like these parts of Sarah that we've heard her many times talk about, like they're the waterfall and kind of a muddiness that got mud on them, and then the waterfall, this love and this compassion comes. It's like that's where I go. Like, where did each of us go with it? How did the waterfall? Did the waterfall translate to your systems? And what's that like for your parts? It's really because in a way, this is all about our parts, right? The beingness isn't going to be touched by what's here because it just is. It is a fulfillment. It is a love. And it's like for our parts that don't yet know it all yet, they get to experience this love, this waterfall. What's it like for your parts to experience that? What do you find, Sarah?
There's a sense of connectedness, like the waterfall, like it's falling and it feels like separate pieces of water. They're falling, but they're all together, they're one. So it feels like all of my parts, they're like one big waterfall. And it's not just my parts, it's all the parts of everyone. Like this one big waterfall, just falling.
What does that give us with this waterfall, with this water as this that connects us? It connects that Sarah is describing how it connects not only her parts feel connected by this waterfall, one big waterfall, one big flow, but then it's like all the parts are of this. And this liquidity, this water. If it's an aspect of our essence. Sorry, what's Sarah?
The sound of it, the sound of the. It's like this peaceful sound of nature.
And this peaceful sound, this peaceful sound in nature, is that separate from us? Is the waterfall separate from us? Is this nature separate from us? Or is it more a flavor of what we are? This peaceful sound, this nature. Is nature an object that we go look at? Or is it our nature? Is it nature of what we are? Anything else you'd like to share with your system, your parts, the waterfall, the muddiness, the love, Sarah?
It's just all of these sounds of all the parts. And they're all hyped up and they all want the spotlight. They want to like pick me. The little ones that want to express and talk. And when they all talk together, it's like one big waterfall, like the sound of the waterfall. It's peaceful. It used to be this overwhelming sound of like, oh, which part needs my attention now? How can I focus on one? But now it's just this peaceful sound of nature. The waterfall, they're all welcome. They can all talk at the same time, and I can be with all of them. They can all flow through me and just be.
About this for us, that Sarah's pointing to, this sense of the sound of our parts that kind of comes together as this very welcome sound. This is a big deal as far as how do we hear our parts? Do we hear something that's nature, harmony, beauty? Do we hear that as we hear our parts? Do we hear our parts from self, which can only hear kind of what Sarah's pointing to? Or are we hearing them more from other parts? Oh, that one's loud. That one it's not getting what it wanted. Oh my God, that one's scared. It's like, where are we hearing our parts from? What's the sound of our parts? And it kind of brings us back to the body again, to Campbell. Who knows how Campbell's gonna bring this together for us with what Sarah's sharing. But how do you hear your parts? Are they beautiful? Is it gentle? Is it love? Is it innocence? Oh, listen to these innocent voices. And we just hear them all as this waterfall. Or are some of them disturbing, like the sound of a chalkboard, like fear? And all of it's welcome, but just notice, how are we hearing them? Any kind of final words with this one, Sarah? What do you final words on this hearing the parts? What else you got with that?
Oh, thank you so much, Sid. It just feels good to be here.
And for our systems, some of the parts that we hear gentleness. And there's this connectedness and welcoming and love and flow. And for other parts, it's like, and for me, I do the chalkboard. It's just a really bad sound for my system. Like, are there some parts when you hear the shame, the lack, the guilt, the sadness, that they're harder to hear? You don't hear the innocence, the beauty. Before we go to where Campbell's going to take us with all of this, anything bubbling? This was really, I don't think we've ever talked about this before in the groups. This is where Sarah's taken us with the sound, talking about sound. What we got? Jessica, Inga, anything in this one? No? Mm. All right, you ready? You ready, everybody? Because Campbell's gonna go someplace with this. Everybody ready? I gave us a chance to stall. Okay, here we go. Campbell!
Okay, so I'd love to invite this group field that we have. So as we were kind of inviting, is nature separate, or is it the nature of who we are in these boxes? Are we really separate, or is the boundary less? And I thought it would be maybe fun to let each person just briefly, if you're open to it, make a little gesture or a little sound or maybe a combo, and then let us all as a group mirror it so that we can be one. We can express how we're really all experiencing together, and enhance our togetherness, and also experience the spirit of spontaneity that is inherent in nature, in our nature. So I'll begin, and then I'll toss the ball, and you can toss the ball onto someone else if it's not for you in this moment. So here's my gesture for you to mirror. Woo! And you can try it. Woo!
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 Good, I'll toss the ball to Sarah.
Whoosh. I'll pass it to Sid.
Whoa.
Whoa.
And I will toss it to Jessica.
I'm gonna go ahead and toss it to Ingrid.
Yay!
Yay!
And I'll take this last one just for us to all sit again in community. You might take the hand to the heart. Maybe there's a light smile that comes through the body that we can sense in ourselves, sense in each other, of being together. Maybe there's a pulling away, a not feeling connectedness. We can welcome that as well. We explore to notice what arises. Thank you.
Thank you. So how are you? For some of us, it was like, wow, that was really fun. I like that game that Campbell did with us. I like it. For others of us, and then we might also have some parts that are like, this is really difficult today. This is like, we're going to this feeling of what's here, these sounds of what's here, and it feels so exposed. I'm uncomfortable. If there is discomfort here, can that be welcomed? Can that be maybe the most interesting thing that's happening in our systems? If there's wherever the discomfort is, be like, whoa, that's fascinating. And if there is discomfort, there might also be a part that's like, I shouldn't be discomfort here. I should just be like playing and having fun. We just notice the part that would say that. Maybe there's some physical discomfort. How are you? What's here? Maybe there's a little to-do list part that's thinking about something to eat. This is fascinating. It's like, what's here? How is life showing up in my system right now? How am I? What's here? You even find a little nervousness. Oh, I don't have an idea about where we're going next as a group. Sid, you're the facilitator, you're supposed to know that. And it's just like all of this, isn't it fascinating? Like, what's your version of that? Of that little exposure that I did? What's your version of that? Like surprises you. Wow, that part is here. Or I'm thinking about a birthday gift, or I'm thinking about Sarah's dress that came in the mail yesterday that she showed to us. It's like, what's the funny thing that shows up in your system? What's the funny one? Does anything make you laugh as far as the parts that are here, the voices that are here? And then what are they arising in? And we get to like Campbell's been guiding us, and in a moment we get to hear like, what's it like inside Campbell? What's that like? Does she have a funny voice? Does she have a voice that's kind of some discomfort that's here? Like, what are her voices? What are her parts that are here? What are her leading parts? What are her leading parts? And it's like movie Inside Out. Like, what are her 5 leading ones or her 9 leading ones? What are her leading parts? Are they the same as ours or are they different? Are they the same as mine or are they different? This is play and someone that's just, and then lastly, what are they arising in Campbell? What's the beingness? What's the flavor of this beingness of this background? It's going to be different, and what's going to be the same between your system and Campbell's? All right, Campbell, tell us a story.
The story of what's it like right now. It's very mixed. There's a little physical discomfort from just before eating, and felt like I ate a few bites too many kind of feeling, like kind of eh. So I have some part who's feels like it's caretaking that, like managing it, like and then there's another that pops up to remind me to relax, like just relax right there. It's okay. You don't need to gather around where it's uncomfortable. So there's a gathering and a releasing kind of rhythm. Yeah, I feel the beingness is spacious. It's like out there. You're all floating in this beingness with me. And that feels, I think earlier, Ingo and you expressed about love, like the parts want the love, and what arose was this, my parts really want an okayness. That's more, I thought, oh, love sounds nice. But no, they want okayness. And so the spaciousness is the taste of okayness right now. But simultaneously, there's this through and within the form of the body, through the sense of the energy of the body. So there's like a little energy where there's like a little story. Some part is like, oh, that's maybe too much energy, or there's some bubbly, might label it as kind of nervous, excited kind of flavor. So that there's a part is like not sure how to relate to it. But also the form, there's something very settling in and throughout. So it's not just that vast space. There's like Sid used the word home earlier, and I was like, God, there's really a hominess to knowing, not knowing the body and the mind, but body knowing body, that I notice here now. That's delicious. Yeah.
What about that last line of Campbell's? This home meanness, the body body knowing the body, right? And body knowing the body. It's a home in that's different than the spaciousness. Body knowing the body. The deliciousness in that. For some of us, That might be the opposite of deliciousness, right? Because this is as we become more intimate with our systems, sometimes the body is where we kind of hold, where a lot of the kind of the fears, the underworld, the things the system isn't ready to be with yet. That's what we find as we feel lower into the belly and places like that. It becomes scary and it becomes like a haunted house in the body. So for some of us, it's the opposite. And that's really exciting when we start to tune into that. And so I just want to contextualize it that way as well. And that there's not a better than. It's not like, oh, I want the home, this body knowing the body that Campbell's speaking of. That's better. No, it's what's better is just where you are. That's what we're interested in, is where you are. What's your experience of your body? That's what we're fascinated by. Anything bubbling with all of that, Campbell?
Yeah, it's like the words don't want to form. Yeah, it's like there's a simultaneity of, so there are two things that came. One is that the differentness of, oh, here's the feeling of the form and the spaciousness, and yet also not different. It's like knowing the body through the background of the spaciousness supports knowing what's being said, including the discomfort. It's like the discomfort isn't so gripping in the foreground because the background is supporting and loosening that grip.
Or we dive in further with what Campbell shared, especially her sense of okayness that her system's longing for, to really go into that with her. Is there anything bubbling up with anybody that would like to be shared? Because this is kind of fun territory. How do you do with that when Campbell said, when Inga was sharing about what her system really wants is love, and Campbell like had a discernment. It's like, love, that sounds really nice, but what my system, what my parts, what I'm really longing for is this okayness. And what about for you when you hear love or okayness? Which way does your system go? Which one is like, oh, I want the love, or no, I want the okayness? Which one seems to be more of a preference for your parts as far as what they're longing for? And then this word okayness that Campbell's speaking of, that I often speak of, this okayness. What does that mean? What is okayness? What is okayness for your part? Sometimes we'll say causeless okayness. What is that? How do you know it's here? What is this okayness? And what's it like in your system as you hear your parts, as you hear this sense of the longing for okayness? What is it that's being longed for?
I'll briefly say my parts, just there's a freedom from being in a trapped feeling, a freedom to be how they are fully.
That wasn't a very nice question. We really put the spot. We really put Campbell on the spot. It's like, okay, what's okayness? What is that? What's that like for your parts? It's just like, but and it's just, as always, please just like tell us, it's like, Sid, shut up. It's like we're just playing, and But like as Campbell describes, it's for her, what is this okayness? There's a sense of freedom from being trapped, and a sense of being able to be fully who they are. This okayness, it's like a freedom, this expression of who we are, this okayness. And that is okayness in the expressing of who we are in a sense of not being trapped. What's it for your system? Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the flavor of okayness, there weren't words before, is like it's like this wash of I'm just imagining it like since we were talking about water earlier, that being in a warm bath is like I could just live in a perfectly temperature warm bath from the body. It's like being bathed and there's just no care. There's a floating, there's a it's just perfectly is. Yeah.
Does anybody have any, it's like this image that Campbell's sharing us. Does anybody sharing with us? Anybody have any questions that come up for you about what Campbell's sharing, or any curiosities or anything that's arising in the terms of this okayness? Anything you'd like to share?
I just want to say I'm so grateful and thank you so much. I have to leave, but I'm so glad that I was here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for guiding us, Campbell. I really enjoyed it a lot. Thank you, everybody.
And yay, Inga can make it today. Yay. See you soon.
You all. Bye.
I'm gonna go too. Bye.
You have such the gift of this intimacy with the body, the somatic, and knowing your system, the body knowing the body. And when it comes to this okayness, as to know that this okayness is here, how much of it seems to be through sensations?
I would say probably the majority through sensations. I feel like for me, when there's kind of a mental impression or perspective that comes, it seems to be layered on top of a somatic sense first. So the somatic is primary. And then, for instance, that bath, it's like, oh, now I could take this perspective. I'm kind of moving through this floating warm water, but the words are secondary to that feeling of yeah, there's nowhere to go or be. That's kind of no problem. It's funny to put the words on it like I wanted to say it's an absence, but that's not fair, right? Because there's a fullness too. There's a completeness too.
Something where it's the body, this knowing comes first. It's like this floating, and then the commentator, the narrator, the making sense of, the words follow.
Mm-hmm.
Does it seem to be for your parts too? And in playing with this model, the idea is that what learns is the parts update, and like they start to get it that, wow, this this okayness is here, okayness is here, and they start getting that, and then more freedom comes for the parts as they start to rest there. Does it seem to be similar that it's somatically the system starts getting this?
Now that's interesting because my initial response is I've noticed parts. Yeah, I guess there is a somatic component. Like I was noticing yesterday a part who was in touch with the okayness at the same time as having a problem that wanted there's a little and it and so there was some spontaneous yeah, I would say somatically the part felt tethered, felt like a in relationship to connected somatically to that okayness, which then it sort of seemed to have some new words of, oh, it's all right, like I'm okay, and yeah. Uh-huh.
Just a sense of us in the silence here. There's just a sense of kind of being with that in my system, like the parts, kind of knowing the okayness thematically while there's still chatter and words, or what Sarah was describing, the kind of the sound of the parts. We'd still have the sound, the words, and then there would be this, perhaps even the background of this somatic knowing, the sense of the okayness. I'm curious, Sarah, as we hear Campbell share with us how this plays in her system. What is this touch for you?
There's that sense of peace and just calm, just being. Like all my parts are okay, we're okay, there's peace. There's no want, there's no lack. It's just being.
I love how we just say there's just being. If we really look for like what's being longed for, right? Like what you described, Sarah, well, there's this peace, there's not lack, there's just being here. What our systems are really longing for, be it love or okayness, just being. We don't want to miss it. That's what, when you talk with people who've had this big shift, often they'll say, it's so crazy. It was here all along. It was just so close and so intimate. I didn't see it. And it's like, Sarah, as you describe what's here, well, there's this peace. Just being. Might that be a flavor of what our parts are longing for, what those 75 parts are longing for? Just the being, just this okayness. And that perhaps it's here, that we're just not seeing it, that this that is being longed for is here.
Yes, it's here. And when Campbell was talking about how okayness feels like being in a bathtub, yeah, that sense of floating. That floating was like being at the end of the waterfall, like just floating at the bottom, just being okay. Like being in a bathtub.
For our parts to really for our systems to really get to know that floating, that waterfall, that being in the bathtub, that okayness. Because then something changes, almost like that first exercise. I think it was the first one that Campbell gave us. It's like, well, we could just be still and just have a little bit of movement. Or we could be really big and be woo. And it's like, what's the difference for your parts to be able to still be floating in that okayness, right? Sometimes it's the stillness that allows it, like where we are right now with the three of us here. The stillness, or like when we get off this call, we might be like, okay, it's time to go do this and time to do that. And we start opening up and doing all of this, and we lose, and then the sense of floatiness, the parts being able to hear or feel the beingness, we kind of lose touch a little bit. So that's our practice. That's what's just our play. It's like we're just playing a game. We're practicing a sport together, so that our system can just gently update. How's it? What you got, Campbell?
Oh, I love that invitation, Sid. So it's like that in touch with beingness, the support of being here together, maybe the support of being a little more still. And, what happens? Can we carry it, that connection to the beingness with us? So it makes me wonder how we could bridge that gap right now. So it's not like we're just pushed out into the, big waves. Trying to
And
surf
Sarah,
suddenly.
aren't we lucky, Sarah, that we have, so that as we close today, we're not just pushed out into the big waves. We've got Campbell here. And Campbell perhaps is going to offer us something to transition us gently from this to our lives. I'm so glad it's you and not me, Campbell. I have no idea what I would do. Which you got something for us, Campbell,
Yeah.
for a way of kind of closing this and transitioning for us. But before we go there, Sarah, anything that you have bubbling that would like to be shared before we move towards Campbell's grand bringing it all together for us?
Oh, there's just so much love and gratitude. Well, thank you so much, Sid, for bringing all of us
Yay!
to connect and just be here.
Yay! Yay! Connect to be here, celebrate together. Celebrate, really to celebrate what's here. Okay, you ready? You ready for a great magic trick, Sarah? Go to Campbell's magic trick.
Well, I also just want to infuse this with love, Sid, for you bringing together these beautiful beings and holding this space. It's so nurturing for my being. Yeah, what I was wondering is if you right now were to briefly imagine what's next for you in your day. So maybe it's to get up and make breakfast. Maybe it's to stay seated here and keep working. So just briefly touch into what might be next. Is it to walk somewhere in your home? Is it to go get some water? And once you kind of know that what might happen, we don't ever know what's going to happen next, right? Then come back to connecting to what's here and what's in the background. Maybe it's that love that you just mentioned, Sarah. Maybe it's the okayness of the bathtub. Sid, I don't know for you right now, what's here? And spontaneously choose something simple. So it might be to just stand up out of your chair, to pick up a cup of water, to move, I don't know, one thing for the next, like move an object, but choose something simple and see if you can keep connected with the background while whatever appears in the foreground arises. I'm going to stand up briefly. Maybe your fingers mimic being on a keyboard. Maybe you type a message in the chat right now. Let that be. Is there a connectedness to love as you do that? Maybe your eyes move off the screen and take in the space, the environment you'll be in and interacting with. Is beingness still part of looking out and receiving in what your environment shows you? Can the simplest act of seeing or sipping be an expression of this beauty, this perfection? I notice some awe coming right now. Whoa, how is this all possible? Thank you for being together.
Thank you, Campbell.
That was so cool. Just like it was a magic trick to like bridge the container of the space with our worlds and our lives after this. Not have them be yet on and off and separated. I love that. Thanks, guys. Campbell, if you have a minute, I had a question for you about something, and this was such a lovely adventure today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Sid.
you, Sarah.
See you later.